Yeah. Yeah. It's about 4 in the morning. 4:30. Me and my nigga Little Obama. In the mind of a hustler, it's hard to express my feelings. My mind's all bruised and battered. I'm searching for the right healing. I try to get high till I can't get high no more. Choke until it burns my throat. In an instant, something vicious was broke. There was power in the way he spoke, the way my music and my voice coincide. It's like I'm at your front door, asking can I come inside for free, nigga. I'll get you high. Just keep it real and never lie, nigga. I'm down until we die, down to let them bullets fly. Even though I wasn't around, I was doing my thing up in the rap game, trying to get paid, man. What does it take to sustain fame? And yeah, I agree with you when you said that life was fucked up, but on the streets it's do or die. So nigga, go ahead and press your luck. And for me to produce quality music like this, it comes natural. This is just a preliminary. This is not the actual scheduled program. What goes on? 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 In the mind of a hustler. What goes on? 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 In the mind of a hustler. What goes on? 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 Hey, what goes on? In the mind. It's hard to know where you going if you don't know where you been. Some of this shit I be in feels like I just can't win. Emotions corroded. It's got me carrying a fully loaded high capacity. You crossing my barriers takes audacity. My legacy exceeds from millenniums to generations. Hoping one day I could live up to my expectations. Sometimes it's hard to tell your loved ones from who's out to get you. True hustlers gets no love. It's kinda hard to get the picture if you ain't had shit to begin with. Look at what we in with. Fool, I ain't never had shit. That's why I play a cold script. So much stress has got me benching 200 pounds with ease. I wonder if hustlers pray it's got me down up on my knees. Will I die tragically in the midst of gun smoke from my allies, or want to be a multi-platinum recording artist worldwide? So if you've been in my shoes, you know it's hard for me to trust you. And this is what goes on in the mind of a hustler. What goes on? 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 In the mind of a hustler. What goes on? 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 Hey, what goes on? 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 Hey, what goes on? What goes on? What goes on? The streets is like a maze. You better make sure you know your way, cause these niggas will run you for your jewels for tools, cause they don't play. Day by day trying to get paid from an hourly wage, but it's hard to get a job with benefits these days. I'm still hanging with criminals, even though we headed for trouble. Got me putting in work, hoping one day that I bubble. Expeditiously drinking, hypothetically speaking. You want the answers to your questions, trying to find the right meaning. I released my first project back in '97, I was 18. I ran through a lot of corruption, so felt I had to come clean. I was surrounded by haters in my own organization. Was it something against me personally, or more of a sensation? It's like the harder I try, the more y'all seem to doubt me. Just listen to my music if you wanna know about me. Some things I've seen and I've done, it might just disgust ya. And these are the last words that was written from this mind of a hustler. What goes on? 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 In the mind of a